A very good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode on the Life Signatures Radio. If you are looking for inspiration, for motivation on the subjects of purpose, productivity, and resilience, you found it on this show. We're running close to 2,000 episodes talking about the subjects of purpose, productivity, and resilience, and we do this every waking day. So if you're looking for teaching, looking for motivation, looking for inspiration, looking for things that are going to help you to think about those three areas, this is the podcast. And if it does minister to you in one way or another, please do us a favor and share it with as many people as you can in your circles, because if it does something to you positively, chances are that it's going to do the same to somebody else. Right now we are in the middle of a series. We've been talking about the personal blockades in our lives, and we've come quite a long way right now. We are dealing with the types of blockades, and the first type we're dealing with is mental blockade. And we've been looking at the several ways in which you can unblock ourselves, remove those mental blockades in our lives or from our lives. And today let us continue doing the same. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Life Signatures podcast with Lawrence Namale. Lawrence is a life coach, author, and keynote speaker who loves to tackle different topics on purpose, productivity, and resilience. His mission in life is to awaken all your boundless possibilities available in you. Life Signatures podcast is dedicated to bring to reality every single person who knows that deep down in their gut, there's got to be more to life than this. And now, here is your host, Lawrence Namale.
There are different ways I can explain a blockade, but let me just tell you this. There's some time you are in a meeting with people and they're talking some figures in dollars, and it's something you've never imagined can never be yours, or you can never, handle that. You can never be attributed to you or your company and maybe your family. Chances are that's a blockade. Today I came across a very powerful, should I call it powerful? But I came across a very interesting quote by, I don't know who this is, but the quote goes something like this, that sometimes the walls that trap us are the ones we draw ourselves. These are the blockades I'm talking about. That it's some things that we have accepted as if they are facts, even though they are not. And that accepting that they are facts limits us from getting to what could be, attaining what could be, becoming what we could, reaching what we could, attaining what is possible for us. The boundless possibilities available unto us. We don't get there because we have limitations that we propped up limitations on ourselves, consciously or unconsciously. And that's what we'll be talking about. We're talking about the mental blockade, and of course the first type of blockade is a mental blockade, and we've been looking at what are some of the ways in which you can get rid of this mental blockade. And by the way, getting rid of a mental blockade is not something that you do as if you're getting baptized today and you're becoming holy the rest of your life. No, it's not an event. It's a daily, could even be a daily thing. It's a process. It's a discipline. Let me just say that. Let me use that word. It's a discipline to get rid of a mental blockade, because it sifts into your life unbeknownst to you. The first thing that you do, you've got to be okay. You've got to be okay with losing, with falling and failing, and with retrogressing. Because sometimes we don't attempt because we're afraid we're going to lose, we're going to be ashamed, we're going to retrogress and so on. So we just stay tethered. We don't ship that book out. What will people say when I write my book? What people say when I share my testimony of how I was like this and now I'm better off? People will think that I'm an embarrassment. What will people say about me? And that's the default mode. We want our best foot forward. So what do? We don't want to lose. We don't want to fail. We don't want to retrograde. We don't want to be ashamed. We don't want to be embarrassed. And in so doing, we limit ourselves. We put up this limit that says, I cannot cross that line lest I fail. I cannot cross that line lest I am ashamed. I cannot cross that line lest I'm embarrassed. I cannot cross that line lest I lose. And therefore we put up a blockade. The second way we can be able to deal with our blockade, we've been dealing with that for a while, and we finished it yesterday, I believe. You prepare and train your mind. This mind has got to be trained. You cannot leave your mind to run amok. One of the biggest things that we've got to put our reins on is our mind. This mind of ours is so powerful. If you just leave it to operate with the input that is gotten from the environment in which you live, it will run amok. It will keep telling you to hold meetings without inviting you and telling you cannot do this, you cannot do that, you can't go there, you can't go do that, and you can. The mind has got to be instructed, and one of the ways I say that we've got to do this is to tell the mind to shut up. To interrupt the meditation that is going on, the negative meditation. You're not going to have a perfect marriage. Shut up! Shut up! And you stop that meditation, stop that mulling over the things that have happened in, what your spouse has done over the past several years. You stop that mulling, stop that meditation. It's not going to lead you to anything progressive. It's going to lead you to a blockade. It's going to prop up a blockade. In fact, the meditation on a negative is building a blockade in itself. So you got to tell your mind to shut up. But then we said you've got to go a step ahead and not just tell your mind to shut up, but you've got to start speaking some positive incantations into your life. Go to the Bible and look at what the Bible says about you. You are the righteousness of God. You are the first and not the last. You are above only and not beneath. You are blessed in the city. You are blessed in the country. The fruit of your womb is blessed. By your God, you can run through a troop. You can leap over a wall. God gives you strength to do valiantly. You start speaking crazy stuff like that, even if the reality, in fact, especially when the reality today is telling you the exact opposite. You don't shut your mouth and speak nothing and let this blockade continue being propped up. You speak up against it. I know it sounds weird because, after doing incantations, you can't go to your bank account and find your bank account full. But this is what's going to happen. You're going to be changing the internal psyche and the internal spirit. You're going to install a possibility mindset. So that's what we talked about. Now, the third thing that we're going to do, if you're going to defeat a mental blockade, there's a very interesting thing that I'm going to talk about today. It is that you've got to prepare other faculties. You know what? The mind is connected to other faculties. And it's a two-way traffic. Other faculties can affect your mind, maybe even infect it. And your mind can also affect other faculties. There's very many ways of doing this. But let me just go to the psychology and physiology analogy. Oh, I love that. It rhymed. I learned this from Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins says that, I heard him saying this, that when he gets back home, him and his wife, they have practiced something. They do physiologically. That when he gets back home, or when she gets back home, they stop everything they're doing. Imagine that. They stop everything they're doing and just run to one another's arms. They just run. Have you ever seen when you come back home? I don't know about you, but have you ever seen when a parent comes back home, the kids just rush to their parent and they jump on them and they are happy. They hug and so on. That's physiology. Let me tell you something. That physiology affects the psychology. Big time. The opposite is also true. You come back home and your spouse is on the phone and they just point at you with their mouth. They say food is there. Or they don't care about you. Guess what? That physiology affects your psychology also, because it's saying something. I am not wanted. I am not needed. I am not celebrated. I am not that important anyway. And guess what? There's a withdrawal, and there's a wall that goes up between the two of you. This is physiology and psychology. Therefore, if you're going to set up this mental blockade and bring it down, you're going to do it physiologically so that it can affect the psychology. You're going to look for some things that you can do physiologically. I might even go ahead and say this. Sometimes when you're doing these physical exercises, you know what? Your mind tells you, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. I've seen this very many times. You create a circuit that you're supposed to jog, and your mind tells you can never run this circuit after you've gone there the first time, and you've spent let's say an hour. Your mind tells you can never do this in a period of 40 minutes. You can't. It's so tough. It's impossible. You know what? The thing that you do is to continue to prepare yourself physiologically. You continue to prepare. You continue to work out, work your gut, work your core. They call it the core. Work your core, and before you know it, your physiology is in a stellar position. Your mind now starts wondering, "Hey, you mean it's possible?" That's how you defeat some of these mental blockades. You do some things physiologically. Sometimes you might need even to change your environment. In fact, sometimes the environment we live around us affects our mindsets, affects our psychology. I said in the other episode that there is a bigger chance for poverty propagating poverty than for riches propagating poverty. In your life, in my life, I've got to make sure that I'm looking at the environment in which I'm living. I'm sprucing it up. I'm not propping up an environment. That's why people normally are told to create vision boards. Mike Murdoch, my mentor, says hang on the wall pictures of where you're going, not where you come from. The environment as a way. So do some other things. Number 3, prepare other faculties. Not just the mind. Prepare other faculties that speak into the mind or affect the mind one way or another. That's why training is important. A man whose mind tells him that he cannot run 10 kilometers under 1 hour can sit at home and accept that defeat, and he can do nothing. Or he can start training his body, his muscles, his joints, his core, his abdomen, and start preparing them. Let the mind continue rumbling. Let the mental blockade continue speaking. But you prepare your physical faculties. And at times the mind has to catch up with the body when the body has conquered what the mind said. The mind's like, hey, what you mean? You do this training by your body. And by the way, when the mind realizes the body can do it, the mind adjusts its stance and then and there starts communicating to you circumspectly. And that's when you realize that the mental blockade has gone. The mind now becomes a fan of the thing that he said or she said it's impossible. Before the mind tells you that you are able to do and to consolidate some of these gains, the mind might have told you you're not able to, but then you went ahead and you prepared yourself physiologically, and now you're good to go. Nevertheless, prepare your other faculties that are involved. Prepare your body, prepare your emotions, prepare your intellect. Read as many books as you can. Prepare your relationships, your ambition, your environment. Prepare other things that are not necessarily in the mind, but they are going to be affected by the mind. Read books like Brain Rules. Read books like The Atomic Habits. Read books like The Compound Effect. Prepare other faculties. They are going to affect the mind, and they are going to pull down some of these strongholds in the mind. Tomorrow we're going to continue talking about how you can conquer mental blockades. But until then, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Life Signatures Radio. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe to Life Signatures Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or visit our website at lifesignatures.libsyn.com. Life Signatures Radio, fresh, clean, and inspiring.